Da 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 da.
Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
Thank you, Dragon. I was hoping you'd sing along with me. All right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And we're gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. You're gonna listen to this Godfather 50-year anniversary retrospective. You're gonna like it. All right. That's enough Don Vito Corleone impressions, Dragon.
All right.
So yeah, 50 years, Godfather. To tell you the truth, Dragon, with the 50-year mark, it's like it almost feels like this movie's been around for longer than 50 years, just because it's so iconic, it's so towering, it's like it's a legendary piece of filmmaking, it's almost mythic in its own way. And that's kind of what I want to talk about with my opening kind of thesis here. So, folks, believe it or not, Dragon, I hate to. This is like a deep-seated admission. I don't know if I ever told you this. I used to be a little bit of a Peter Griffin about The Godfather.
Really? You were that guy? You were the guy drowning in the attic saying, I did not care for The Godfather.
More specifically, I was the guy who was like, the wedding scene is too slow. Nothing happens. It takes 45 minutes for anything to even get set up.
God.
The pacing is too slow. I think I was just too young because I was in high school back then. I really think this is a movie that's just very much for adults, Dragon, because my God, looking through it in an adult lens, it's hard to argue that this is just goddamn perfect filmmaking. I do have a lot of nostalgia for this before I even attempted to see it, Dragon. And it's kind of like weird, oddly specific nostalgia. So, Dragon, did you ever go to a Paramount park when Paramount owned theme parks?
What? Tell me, was King's Dominion ever a
Yes,
Paramount park?
King's Dominion was a Paramount park at one
Well,
point.
I think technically yes.
Okay, do you happen to remember that when Paramount had their parks? Now, I assume this is the same way throughout the chain. I only went to Great America, which is now California's Great America. But I vividly remember they had like a ton of really big scale posters throughout the park. Like when I say big scale, I mean like, like not like giant scale, but like slightly bigger than the average movie poster size. And they were kind of like behind glass frames and they were just kind of scattered throughout the park. Dragon, do you remember that at all?
I mean, I not intimately.
No, not specifically.
No.
Okay, that's okay. It might have just been a Great America thing for all I know. But yeah, Dragon, that was my first exposure to anything The Godfather, was just the poster, which was, just the just the hand with the puppet strings. And I was very intrigued by it. I was just like, oh my God, is this like a dark, serious version of Pinocchio or what? Like, I had no idea what it was, Dragon.
Geppetto.
I just had the puppet strings to work off of, honestly, and The Godfather, I was like, is The Godfather kind of like the, kind of like a dark version of the Blue Fairy?
Of all these remakes they're doing of the re-adaptations of Pinocchio they're doing this year, let's just add one more that's basically the Godfather version of Pinocchio, where Pacino is playing Pinocchio. And anyway, so
oh God,
is here.
You know about the Rob Schneider one, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, you don't? Oh, no. Oh, God. All I can say about it is that it very much has the potential to be the next food fight.
Anyway.
All right. Anyways, so yeah, and of course, Dragon, Rugrats in Paris. I think Rugrats in Paris was probably an entry point for a lot of 90s kids into Godfather references, because that movie literally has like a whole subplot of I love how clever it is, Dragon. It's like Angelica watched The Godfather, under the guidance of her parents, who were like, man, what's the worst that could happen? And she just gets all these ideas in her head and totally misinterprets The Godfather, and it goes on to kind of influence the entire plot of the movie. I love how clever that is. And of course, it's a Paramount movie and Viacom, so it all worked out.
Yep, all relative. Yep, for sure.
What are your and obviously, Dragon? It's like we're gonna talk blue in the face about how masterful this film is from pretty much every conceivable angle imaginable. It's like water is wet here. But Dragon, I'm curious, like, what your first impressions were of The Godfather. When did you become aware of The Godfather? When you were a kid, like, what's your experience with it?
So, like a lot of the classics, my grandfather has always been kind of like the touchstone. He's always the one who's kind of introduced me, like Jaws, for example. And of course, bridging from Jaws, The Godfather was a biggie. He adores The Godfather, loves it, particularly the sequel. He loves them both. He honestly loves the Grand Hole, but like many people, not crazy about the third. But the original two, gaga for it. So a lot of my nostalgia kind of comes from that experience. He had a great love of the mob. Some of his favorite movies are The Godfather and Goodfellas. Those are kind of his go-tos. He's a huge Scorsese fan. Of course, for me, again, basically, you watch The Godfather. Basically, it was kind of by his insistence I watched it. I took it in. Again, probably younger than I should have been when I watched it, but I took it in. I got it. And then, of course, the big thing I really geeked out about was, again, in other things, when I just kind of saw how truly saturated The Godfather was in the pop culture that I adored. Again, as you mentioned, Rugrats being a very memorable example. With the Bob father and everything. I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is familiar. And then, of course, it really hit home. I think the greatest example for me is there's an episode of Freakazoid that I really love called The Freakazoid, which has basically the whole opening and the whole premise is Freakazoid on his birthday granting requests.
Oh my god, yeah.
And remember, they open on the America speech, but it's with a Shriner. I believe in the superhero, except that one fella. He's a too smelly for me. And then it was whole like my daughter, she bring home this boy. I forget what the kid's name was. She bring home this boy, and he make fun of my car, my little putt putt. And I like anyway. So it goes in the whole this Paul Rugg just having a great time, just doing a parody of The Godfather, just priceless. So again. And of course, I think the biggest thing of all that was the biggest indoctrination of like The Godfather really mattering. Its impact mattering, in my circle was Batman the Animated Series draws heavily from The Godfather because Batman itself draws heavily from The Godfather with the mob stuff. Long Halloween. You don't have Long Halloween.
Yeah, the five families,
Godfather.
Of course. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So pretty much anytime we do the mob in Batman the Animated Series is kind of it's very much already kind of stylistically it's influenced by The Godfather. Then after the animated series, and because of that, you have the Long Halloween comic coming out, which is very directly pulling from The Godfather. So it's kind of very it's very interesting how that works. Then, of course, there are other examples like Family Guy, of course, which we do heavy parodies of like, okay, this is just we're making one of Brando.
So, although to be fair, I do really like the Family Guy gag about I've never cared for The Godfather, because honestly, I feel like that gag is kind of like a commentary on. This is gonna sound fucking pretentious. I know it's gonna sound pretentious.
I'll tell you if it is. Just tell me. I'll tell you.
There's no way it's not gonna sound pretentious. It's kind of a commentary on like how how deep the movie is and how you kind of need to really analyze it and be with it to really get the most out of it.
Right.
Anyways.
But yeah, that's the thing. The Godfather, definitely there's the ambiance of The Godfather is that's the thing. It just kind of radiates like a film classic. Now, would you like me to bridge into some kind of legit thesis here, or or do you want to stick with some nostalgia? Where do you want to go with this?
I mean, do you have any more nostalgia for it?
I mean, no, I got gobs of nostalgia. We're going to be here all day if I tell you. Just when you rewatch it, then you see, oh my god, how the sequel feeds into like the lore of the whole.
Of course,
everything. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What's your overall thesis, and then we can just jump right into the background.
So again, without this, there is no Albuquerque verse. There is no Batman Long Halloween. The key to the success of this film, I feel, is it humanized and added depth to the cliche of the mob. It's the guys in suits in the restaurant that they pull the strings. The mob. Ooh. So I think the reason this film is the unbreakable classic is that it asks the question, why is organized crime so hard to stop? And of course, the answer being, where's the strength and the loyalty come from? The answer being, well, we put the family in Crime Family. It's the strength of family. Like you. So again, they kind of hit like lightning in a bottle there of like, oh my god. The answer is in the question. Why is this crime family so strong? Well, of course, it's because, like any family unit that you're pulling for, in many respects, on the flip side of it, again, it was one of the early anti-hero tales, one could argue, only kind of more so
Totally,
with the whole
totally.
film. Not just one specific character, but the whole, we flipped kind of the perspective here. Okay, the criminals are our heroes to a degree. And, the story, again, just the story being framed from that traditional kind of villain's perspective, and but made appealing and relatable with the qualities that are on display with the family and how they interact, and what they're about. And I think the big thing to really hit with The Godfather is that it doesn't glorify crime, but it makes the mobsters 10 times more interesting than they ever had been up to that point. It's just overall movie's just artful. It's dripping with gravitas. There's an operatic nature to it that doesn't feel hammy until maybe the third one, but let's not go there right now. It's dripping with gravitas and character, and utterly an icon of cinema. I mean, just truly. It is the crime drama, to put it simply, the crime drama, The Godfather.
All caps the, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Dragon, two other things to mention just as far as pop culture zeitgeist goes. Number one, it's a long time running joke with The Simpsons that you could basically just take like bits and pieces of The Simpsons, clip them together, and just remake The Godfather. They reference The Godfather so much on The Simpsons. They're obsessed
Fat
with
Tony.
The Godfather.
Yeah, you got Fat Tony. How can you not?
Of course, yeah. Let's see. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? Oh, nah, it'll come to me. I don't want to delay the show. Okay, Dragon. Let's get into the background. It's we're literally getting a series about the background.
Yeah, I know, which is quite interesting. So
spoiler alert for that series, folks.
Well, I won't go into all the ins and outs about what the series is really going to dive into. I'm just going to tee it up. But just the gist of it is Mario Puzo, great writer, wrote the Godfather book in '69. Now, Mario Puzo, for those who may not, who may or may not remember, guy who went on to write Superman. Again, The Godfather was, again, the big credence that gave us, Marlon Brando's Jor-El, and also Mario Puzo writing Superman. Again, the man
it's
just
really
writes
interesting how Puzo kind of like, hip hopscotched around from from novels to screenwriting. He was like a really versatile pop culture guy.
Oh, absolutely. So, point being, he writes this book. He writes The Godfather. It's a huge hit, so much so that Paramount options it. They kind of talk to him, say, "Hey, can we option this into a movie? We'll give you basically a bigger cut of the profits." Basically, we'll give you basically Puzo did not necessarily want to do. A lot of people were kind of reluctant to do The Godfather, but basically they were all hard up for money at that time. It's like, well, we got to do it. I mean, his publisher said, no, don't do it. Oh God, I need the money.
So Mario Puzo, why did you do The Godfather?
Money.
Yep. You knew where I was going with that.
Yes. So the goal is basically. The goal of the studio, the reason that the studio really wanted to not just capitalize on the success of the Godfather book, but really, make it into a movie, is that up to this point in time, mob movies were never made authentically. As in, the mob movies were always like big name actors, none of them Italian. There was never like an Italian.
I feel like up until this point, like this might be a slight exaggeration, but it was mostly just kind of like the stereotypical, like, sure.
Yeah, exactly. It was very much Edward G. Robinson.
That dame's coming with me, sir.
Yeah, it was the Edward G. Robinson kind of gangster, with like the cigar and like the kind you'd see parodied in the Looney Tunes, like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Where's the mall? Anyway, so the point being, just it was very much kind of classic gangster fare. Like, hey, let's throw a big name. Let's get a James Cagney or something. You dirty rat. Let's do something like that. That's usually what it's been. Never used any actual tags. Again, primarily just been a cliche mustache twirler. Only most of the time had a mustache. So had not been done before. So the first step in their process was, okay, let's get an Italian director. Of course, the premier Italian director everyone wants. Seriously, that was it. Let's get an Italian director.
The new challenger appears.
So the go-to option was Sergio Leone, of course, because everyone wanted Sergio Leone. He was huge, with the Western, with the spaghetti Western. And then Sergio Leone, he turned them down because he went on to. Had you ever watched this movie, Once Upon a Time in America?
Oh man, I am very familiar with the plot because this one of my favorite Fat Tony episodes is basically that.
I see.
But yeah, I've never actually sat down and watched the actual movie.
My grandfather adores De Niro, so if there's a mob movie and De Niro's in it, he's seen it and he loves it. And again, Once Upon a Time in America is one of those films. So the point being, Leone did that as part of like the Once Upon a kind of trilogy that he did. Anyway, so he basically was like in the throes of working on that, and he knew if he did a mob movie like now with them, he wouldn't be able to do his Once Upon a Time film, so he didn't. So he turned it down. So the studio was a little hard up, so they went to kind of the up and comer that was Francis Ford Coppola.
Like I said, a new challenger appears.
That he does with a beard. So,
yes, anyways, that is kind of his defining feature.
It is. So Coppola here, he's hesitant.
I've always wanted to go to the Coppola Winery, Dragon. Just a little aside. It's about like 45 minutes down the road for me, but it's like it's so, it's like you have to invest a pretty penny to go to it if you want to get anything out of it. So I don't know. One day, I know they have a bunch of props from The Godfather. I'm pretty sure they have some of the cars out front.
Wouldn't it be delightful if you went down there and like the Francis Ford Coppola was like, "Hey, here's some wine."
Yes, Dragon. Yes, that would in fact be delightful.
I mean, I don't think he's directing much these days. I mean, he might as well just just sell wine.
I mean, that's more or less what he's doing. Honestly, I'm pretty sure the winery is like the big thing he's got going on right now.
Yeah.
So honestly, he's probably there more times than not.
That's what I'm saying. Anyways. Wouldn't that be like the big draw of like, hey, talk to the guy who made The Godfather? It's like, hey. How's it going, man?
You know what? Honestly, it's kind of like the Walt Disney thing of like when he was alive. It's like, oh, go to Disneyland. You might see Walt Disney.
Yeah.
All right. One quick aside also, just as far as like celebrity stuff goes. Cheech Marin is going to be at my weed club, and I'm really excited. And it's going to basically be like, Cheech Marin is going to be like, hey, bro, want to get stoned? I'm like, yes, Cheech. Yes, I do.
I guess it's not really the time to bring up Cheech Marin, Tiki. Can we drift back?
I know. I'm just talking about celebrity encounters and meetings and everything. So,
all right. Anywho, so Coppola was.
Oh, Johnny, play me a song.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
So Coppola was hesitant to direct, but he was desperate because again, I think initially he had a lot of the read of like, I don't know, I think we're kind of glorifying the mob a little, and I think he went back to the book and he saw a lot more material there. And essentially, what he did is once he agreed, because again, hard up for the cash, he needed a job because again, this was Coppola up and comer like in the same class as George Lucas at USC, essentially, him, like not really earning his. This is the film that made his career.
Absolutely,
So he basically what he did is he went through the book, he tore pages literally out of the book and kind of like put them in like a binder, and then went over it with Poutso and basically pumped it up and turned it into the film.
Okay, what I like about that is that when you were first describing it, I was like, okay, like he tore pages out that he wanted to cut out of the book, but no, the pages that he tore out were the movie.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool. That almost kind of reminds me of how Paul Thomas Anderson wrote "There Will Be Blood" out of like a little section of Upton Sinclair's oil! !
Right.
All right. Anyways,
so there's a lot, as you can imagine, there's a lot of pressure on there's a lot of pressure on Coppola here, because the popularity.
The making of this mirrors Star Wars in some weird ways, doesn't it?
It does. It mirrors it for sure. Only there's a little bit more life and death stakes at play with The Godfather.
Yeah, totally.
So the popularity of this book, and the buzz it was getting, is kind of what saved Coppola's job, because Coppola was like they really wanted to replace.
Dragon, I'm sorry. I gotta stop you. I'm sorry. It's Coppola, not Coppola.
Fine, Coppola.
I'm sorry. I
hear it both ways. I took a leap.
I'm pretty sure it's Coppola, Dragon.
I've been
he lives in the area. He lives in. All right. It's like
how would you know? How would you know?
I literally just told you. Like I hear the name quite a bit because he's got the famous winery. It's a local thing.
Here's the thing. I keep saying Coppola, and then I hear like once it's Coppola, so I keep shifting.
I'm pretty sure it's Coppola, Dragon.
All right, fine, Coppola. Can I get back to my point?
Yes, I'm sorry. It was bugging me.
Anyway, So there's a lot of pressure on Coppola because the popularity and the buzz of around the book, and essentially it saved the job because they wanted to replace Coppola, much like they kind of were angling to replace Donner on Superman. Only they didn't officially
Right.
pull
That
off
was
the movie.
basically the stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it came down to Brando saying, "I'm going to leave the movie if you don't let him direct." It really came down to that. And speaking of Brando, Matt Brando was very much the make or break of the film and getting it made, and that the studio really had it out for Brando because this is Brando like kind of I want to say at the start because I know it got really bad like after this film, but I think it was literally this is when it was like kind of starting to happen with his films. He this is when Brando was starting to get really unpredictable on set. This is when Brando was starting to really do like, oh god, what's that wacky Brando gonna do now? Is he gonna actually finish the movie? Is he gonna take a bath in the movie like on in the little stream while we're shooting? What's gonna happen now? There's cue cards all over the place. So essentially, again, the studio hated Brando. They said Marlon Brando will never be in this film. Like they outlined it outright. It's like, no, he's not going to be in this movie. And honestly, they doubted all the casting. They kept second guessing the cast choice, which cost them a lot of money, by the way.
Which is crazy when you look at the cast list nowadays.
Because honestly, ultimately, what they did is they went with the first choices. But it was so funny. The way James Caan tells the story is that the cast was pretty much all the first choices were basically assembled and tested over like a lunch. Like they were all paid in corned beef sandwiches for like the audition. And they get all the at least all the Corleone brothers, or the Corleone brothers, like in a scene and get them all cast and everything with Brando there. And then basically it was like the studio's like, no, we have to go through a whole audition process, which cost them a lot of money. It's just kind of funny how that works. So Puzo wrote Brando in mind when he wrote the book. So he always pictured Brando. He was absolutely the guy for the job. So what they did is just to kind of sweeten the deal, they did a screen test at Brando's place. And basically that's where Brando he basically improvised with like some objects on hand when they were doing kind of a rudimentary makeup test. And they kind of mirrored the lighting in the opening scene. They gave him he put like cheese and grapes and tissues in his mouth to basically give him kind of like the bulldog appearance.
Then someone was randomly walking by with a cat and they were like, hey, that would make a good shot.
Pretty much. And I think the cat was it's like an improv as well. Like
yeah.
So that's the thing. So Crazy Brando basically is like, okay, fine, you get to have Crazy Brando, but he's gonna take a pay cut and he's gotta put up a bond because if he pulls any stuff that's gonna take him out of the movie, we gotta be able to recast another guy. So anyway. So also, Pacino was the other big sticking point. Basically, they kept turning their heels like, oh god, do we cast Pacino? Do we not cast Pacino? When ultimately, they wanted Pacino so badly. They finally got him. De Niro auditioned for Sonny. Which is kind of funny how that worked out. Okay, lastly, and again, the author is going to get into all this. The mob had eyes on the film. The Colombo crime family.
Yep, very much so.
And let's just say they had opinions, and you'll notice mafia is not said in this film, and that's because the mob said they don't say mafia. Don't
Five families.
Exactly. They don't say it. And of course, now on Paramount Plus, next month they're doing the Offer Show, which is with Dan Fogler. It's Dan Fogler, right? Dan Fogler playing Francis Ford Coppola.
I'm pretty sure. Yes, which is really exciting. Dragon, I do not love the Fantastic Beasts series at all whatsoever, but I love him in the Fantastic Beasts.
I like Fogler as an actor. I love
his character.
I like Fogler as an actor.
He elevates stuff that's otherwise terrible.
Yes, and when I saw it, anyway, when I saw him in the trailer, I was like, "Oh my god, that is flawless casting." I never would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, so ultimately, Godfather, as you know, goes over great, goes over very big, gets a lot of accolades at the Academy Awards, wins 3 Oscars, wins for actor, best picture, and screenplay, and infamously, 2 things happened infamously. So Pacino was very unhappy, so much so he didn't attend the Oscars because he was nominated for supporting when he was more so the lead character of the film.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
He was really cheesed off at that.
Oh, wait. Don't tell me Brando was nominated for lead.
Yeah, that's what he won for.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
No.
It
should totally be the other way around.
I mean, the way I've heard it, I'm pretty sure they never say he won for best supporting actor, so I'm taking it to mean
he
won for best actor.
Yeah.
because again, he was like on the poster and everything, but
Honestly,
still not
if
really
I was Pacino, I'd be pissed too.
yeah.
Honestly,
And of course, when Brando won the very prestigious award, and again, this is a very like if you're going to win an Oscar for a role, this is the role you want to win the Oscar for, supporting or no. And anyway, and basically, he did a very infamous stunt.
oh,
This is
this
like
was
an
the
Oscar.
one he pulled the stunt for. Oh man,
Yes, yes. So
uh-huh.
what he did is, I'm pretty sure he never won another Oscar again because of this, because the Academy just hated him.
Well, yeah, that would make sense.
Anyway, so he basically Brando wanted to take a stand against the misrepresentation of Native Americans in film. He tried to kind of get rid of the stereotype in film and television. And what he did is he sent this poor Native American lady, this Little
Oh
Feather was her
man,
name,
yeah.
and she went up there. And if you've ever heard the story, like this lady was like threatened off camera, like they thought, don't you effing dare read that full letter. Don't you dare say.
I kind of
Like,
hope that this gets involved in the series, Dragon. I kind of hope this is part of the series somehow.
I mean, if it would be in the last episode if it's there.
That's what I'm saying.
Cool.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see. I don't know if we're gonna. I think it's more about the making of, like in the throes of it.
No,
But
I
if they
know.
get
But
it in there,
this is like such a weird kind of like iconic part of the mythos of the making of the Godfather, if you will.
yeah.
It's
So,
kind of like a weird, like it's kind of surrounds the movie.
but again, it kind of cemented like Brando's like status of like this is the guy who won the most prestigious award in Hollywood, and he didn't even show up for it when he won. It wasn't just like one of those things. Oh, he didn't even show up to the event. It's like no, they all expected him to show up. And then just I don't even know if he like attended and they just didn't go on the stage and he kind of left her. I don't know exactly
If
how
I
it
were to
happened.
guess, I'm pretty sure he probably just didn't attend.
That's the thing. He probably just didn't attend period, but just to send this lady up to basically reject the Oscar. That's amazing. Anyway, so of course, Godfather goes down in history, gets 2 more films, and then a recut version of the 3rd film. A lot of different edits on the Godfather films and repackagings over 50 years, and here we are.
I really regret not having the time to see the restoration of the original that's currently in theaters. I could have a couple days ago, but I just didn't have the energy, and it wasn't even playing in my town. I would have had to take the bus, a town away, and then the 3-hour movie. But man, I would love to see it. All right, we have that guy who just basically makes a joke. The Godfather is an old man now.
Yeah, 50 years.
I mean, I assume you're talking about Pacino, and yes. All right. Okay, so yeah, let's just get into it. I mean, my God, Jesus Christ, we could, Dragon, how do you even want to approach this? Because we could literally just be like, isn't the opening scene great? Isn't the wedding great? Isn't the Hollywood stuff great? I mean, we could literally just go down the line, literally every scene.
I mean, more or less, Tiki. I mean, it's, Okay, well, I mean, we got to talk about the I Believe in America.
Yeah, we got to talk. It's like, it might be the best opening scene of any movie, period. It really might be. With the music, the opening line just catches you right away. The cinematography, the slow pull into the dawn. Oh man, it's great.
So I think the opening just really encapsulates the relationship between crime, family, and the American dream just so perfectly. And of course, I love The Undertaker. My favorite scene in the movie actually is the payoff with The Undertaker. So I love all that, and also I love that how Godfather Part Two. Which is another runner we have with the Godfather. Luke Cage reference, kid. Sorry. Point being, Godfather Part Two shows Vito Corleone's he does value the American dream, but on his own terms, as that whole film is dedicated to basically his American dream playing out. As he kind of builds kind of his empire before our eyes. So basically this whole opening tells us everything we need to know about this character, and Brando just conveys just everything you love and need to know about this character so perfectly. And that he is a principled family man who's all about respect and pleasantries, which you and I we dig the pleasantries. Yet he's grown so world weary. He's a Godfather kind of at the end of his run here. He's grown weary of being seen as a boss versus a friend, which I think ultimately by the
Yeah,
end of the
totally,
film,
totally.
Michael has, it seems to me, and obviously we kind of confirmed this with the sequel, Michael has no problem with just like the purely business like aspect of you come to me when you need something. I don't really need to be your friend. I don't really need to know you that well. Just, I want to keep the wheels of progress kind of going here, where Vito's all about like the actual kind of friendships and like, favoritism, that kind of, you do me a favor, you scratch my back, I scratch your back of the whole thing. And we hit something very specific at the top that to just show, it sets the tone that no, we're not doing the cliche like, okay, mobsters without morals that are just like, like pull out that Tommy guns. We're not doing that. Vito is all he makes the line very distinct to the Undertaker. Your daughter is still alive. That is not justice. He knows the line between justice and revenge. Which leads to his measured responses. Like he's not like when people he loves get killed or taken out. He's not all like blinded by rage and like, oh, we gotta kill them all. Let's take them all off the board. No, he's very measured in his response. So it's a really great just kind of character piece. Now visually, Tiki, we should talk about the cinematography of the film.
I mean, what else needs to be said? It's just, I think the color palette of this movie really sticks out. All the browns and golds and reds. I mean, it's so rich and so distinct.
Well, the two things that stick out to me with the cinematography. So one, they went for this thing called like a tableau look, which basically means every shot of the film looks like a painting. Particularly this
that makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
What's really cool about the opening, particularly, is that it's like they're shrouded in darkness, as in like the darkness of what they do consumes them, which is already like a visually really interesting idea. And the thing that I caught on the rewatch is it really is representative. I know it's literally kind of how they made it because it's a film that's shot in the 70s, but I love how the film is set in 45. It's set in the 40s. And obviously, there's some time jumps here and there, but it's set in
like
the 40s.
Immediately post-war.
Exactly. So, we're in the 40s, and it feels like a great mix, whether just by accident or not. It's a mix of the 40s and the 70s, which, again, is a commentary on crime and organized crime in the 70s. But I like that it's basically take kind of the Art Deco kind of Batman the Animated Series kind of like aesthetic of crime in the 40s, and add like the grit and the genuine danger of the 70s, like coat it in the 70s of like all this violent horrific stuff could happen in kind of the idealized 40s. So I love that it's kind of visualized in the cinematography, well, retroactively or not. I think it's really cool.
All right, I'm going to reference Empire of Dreams here because I'm sure you remember the in the opening bits of Empire of Dreams where they have like the 70s is in terms of iconic blockbusters were filled with like really cynical, dark, edgy movies, and I feel like The Godfather kind of personifies all of that.
Yeah,
it was like it was the kind of like cynical hard edge movie before Jaws. It was like the last breath of like really really artful, tasteful adult cinema before Jaws. I mean, Jaws is great in its own right. It's a masterpiece, but it's that was like the first real modern blockbuster, whereas this is kind of like a distinct, like it's the ultimate Venn diagram of pop art and high art.
I mean, I'll still attest the 70s might be our strongest decade in film. It really might be, because like if you took like one of the biggest film of every individual year of the 70s, you have like the most impressive lineup ever. I mean, I'm not going to list them all here, but I mean, again, Godfather in 72, Jaws in 75, Star Wars in 77, Rocky 76. That's just the first half.
Literally every year is like a benchmark.
I mean, Superman in 78, the Muppet movie in 79.
right.
It's crazy. Anyway,
that guy has a couple comments. He says the Godfather thing was a joke on how the movie itself is literally an old man now.
Yeah,
50 isn't that old. I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm just saying. I wouldn't call a 50-year-old an old man at that point. I would call like maybe a 60 or 70-year-old an old man.
Let the man have his comment. Come on.
All right, I'm sorry, that guy. I'm sorry. That's honestly just me being insecure about getting older. I'll admit.
Just eat the bacon on the plate, man. It's okay.
Oh, God. That guy says, crime, family, and the American dream. Put that on our flag, God damn it. And then Jaws came in and said, okay, we did the whole cynical thing. Let's have some fun now.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to a 50th anniversary Jaws retrospective when that hits.
Yeah,
We already did the Spielberg month commentary, but I'm sure we can have more to say about that.
right.
Anyways.
Okay, so just let's talk about the wedding. Because the wedding,
when I was like in high school, that's where the movie lost me, because I was like, there's so much stuff going on and it's hard to keep track of it all. And
I'm going to meet you halfway on that, T.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why. So here's the thing: even much reverence as I have for The Godfather, looking back on with a little bit more of a critical eye this time, well, not less critical, just more of like I'm going over with a fine tooth comb, just kind of seeing how well it truly holds up. I will say this: the only critique I could ever feasibly make against this film, I think, and again, it's not a negative thing, but it's something I think I never thought of before. Between the wedding and parts of the wedding, not the whole, the wedding as a whole is actually a very central piece of the film, which I really
agree.
love. Now, the wedding and majority of the Sicily stuff, I think what's happening is I think it's Coppola just kind of taking the opportunity of, okay, a big mandate in the film is like, we want to show the Italian heritage and we want to do it upright. And Coppola actually put a lot of his family, obviously Talia Shire's sister.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Talia Shire is his sister, and he's got a lot of family. His daughter plays the baby at the end. He put a lot of himself, put a lot of his family in there, and ultimately, it feels like I think he was kind of just trying to get as much representation of that on screen in those scenes. And I think the risk of doing that, while it is good, the risk of that is it does add some runtime, like take in the beauty of the scenery and the authenticity. And it's like, look, we have the really great plot points of the wedding, but then we're just kind of there for a while. Like when we cut away from the office scenes, we just kind of need just to basically set up the next part of the office scene. But it's like,
yeah, but I mean the stuff at the wedding, like the office scenes are obviously the iconic, really compelling parts of the wedding for sure. But think about how much setup is going on within the actual wedding, because we have, like, obviously, first and foremost, we're establishing Michael Corleone as a character. Like, literally, like, it's like he's like, he's like Odysseus at the start of the Odyssey. It's like he has no idea what he's in for. He's like, one of the famous lines, of course. I mean, this is a movie where literally every line is a famous line, of course. But, I think this line kind of sums up Michael's character at the beginning. It's like, that's my family, Kay. It's not me.
Which is a great line, of course.
We see him, of course, like just a symbol of him being decked out in a military uniform. It's like, how could this guy possibly be involved in the mob? This guy is like the cleanest Corleone there is.
But ultimately, when you look at the mob, they have lieutenants, and of course, military also have lieutenants. So
of course.
Bit of a, but you see what I'm saying, though, is that, I mean, again, plot. Don't get me wrong. The wedding, just to talk about how great the wedding is. The wedding is a central point that sets everything up. In that, we set the tone of the Italian family. We introduce our characters. Like, for example, Carlo. Carlo is a huge plot point in this film. That the whole wedding is him being married into the family, which is going is going to bring the family to ruin. So that's a big point. That's
one of my favorite kind of bookends of the whole movie is, Dragon. I already kind of referenced the line just because I think it's a really fun line, and it'll probably be my end tag. One of the first lines that Connie's the name of the sister, I think.
Yeah, Connie. Yeah.
Okay, good. Like when Johnny Fontaine shows up and she's like, Johnny, sing me a song. And it's like she's so girlish, so full of joy, so innocent. And then the end of the movie like really hinges on just her completely being destroyed, And I really think that's a fascinating kind of mirror image, how it's like we start with the daughter. She's not a big character through the movie, and neither is Carlo, but they're certainly both kind of like the driving forces of the narrative whenever they are on screen.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying, though, Tiki, is that, again, while they don't truly, there's not a lot of depth applied to them, the main thing is that they are like this, they're the linchpin that brings everyone together. She's the representation of family that also kind of destroys the family, ultimately.
Sure.
So that's what I'm saying. I love structurally everything we're doing there. So again, with Luca Brasi, for example, and the Undertaker, and like all these things.
Luca Brasi is my favorite part of all the non-office wedding stuff. He's so intimidating.
By the way, Luca Brasi, actual mobster.
Yes. And I love the backstory of like they literally just put him reciting his lines in and blowing his lines because he had no idea how to read the part. And when he so it's like the whole thing with him reciting the lines over and over and then flubbing the lines once he gets to Brando. It's like, they're basically having to write around. There's no way this guy is actually going to authentically deliver the line when he gets in front of Brando. We have to write around that, man. We have to write a plot specific reason for it.
But again, it's a really endearing quality. That's what I'm saying. This whole thing is like we're kind of adding humanity to our scary mobsters. It's like, yeah, look at him. He's just trying to pay tribute to the Don, who is just kind of messing it up, and you feel a little, and so you like him a little bit more when he gets killed later.
Yeah.
And we build him up wonderfully with the contract story about, his brains or signature is going to be on the contract. He made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, again, ultimately, though, that's what I'm saying. This again, I'm loving the wedding, and I love all the stuff in Sicily, but again, it just feels like maybe we linger on it a little too
much.
Can
I talk about the stuff in Sicily?
Well, can I get some feedback on my thought here?
I'm sorry. Do you have any more on your thought? Because that's what I was going to address.
All right, go on. What do you got?
Okay, I honestly, no disrespect, but I do have to disagree politely with the Sicily stuff. As far as I think the heritage of Italy is pivotal to the tone of the film. And I don't know, Dragon. I honestly think the Sicily stuff is a big part of what makes this film feel epic, at least to me. Because it's a big part of Michael's transformation. It's basically his, it's what happens to him immediately upon his point of no return.
Well, I mean,
and he essentially goes to Sicily to become an entirely different man. And it's where we first see him start to be cold and calculating and strategic. And, people always kind of miss it. Here's my thing about him getting the second wife is like people always kind of misinterpret it as he's being disloyal to Kay, and to a certain extent he absolutely is, obviously, but I really think that him getting the wife is more of a power play. It's more of like surrounding himself with people, and it's where we really get to see his strategic mind really in action. And I don't know, I just think that on top of the cinematography, on top of just how authentic it is to be shooting on literally the hollow grounds of the mafia, I don't know, Dragon. It just, like I said, it just adds a layer of epicness.
I mean, the big thing I really like about Sicily is the fact that it's basically his version of, and again, it's more of a retroactive thing, but it worked wonders again with how well these two films play against each other. It's basically he's going through the arc that his father went through in Godfather Part Two, in which, he's kind of his version of the American Dream Odyssey that he's kind of going through. That's shaping him. So I think it's not that I don't dislike the Sicily stuff at all. It just feels like it's kind of an in for a penny, in for a pound sort of thing. And that I'm saying if anyone's looking at, man, why is The Godfather such a long movie? Well, this is the reason why. And I mean, yeah, you need it for the arc, but I don't know. It is kind of a pacing thing, but it's a pacing that doesn't get in the way of, doesn't take away from the movie at all. It's just like,
well, I personally think the 3 hours flies by in this movie. So
I concur. I'm just saying I think it's very much like it's going to make or break it for some people. And
I mean, I could see that, and maybe as a high schooler, it probably is a high schooler. I'm sure it did bore me, but I'm just saying, looking at it through a critical lens nowadays, I don't know. I see very little flawed about it.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, I think there's a little bit more momentum going on in the other and in kind of the stuff in New York, but by the same token, I can't take away the character, the strong.
I mean, he's literally laying low.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry.
Okay, so Johnny Fontaine.
Johnny, sing me a song.
Okay, so Johnny Fontaine. I still don't believe this fully. I don't know. This one sounds like a rumor to me, but it was art imitating life with the actor who played Johnny Fontaine. They had cast a different guy for the part, and the guy who basically ended up playing Johnny Fontaine, he had connections to the real life mob, to like the head honcho, to Buffalino, the guy who Joe Pesci played, and the guy who Joe Pesci played in The Irishman. That guy. So he had ties to him, and basically He basically orchestrated his way into literally, as in the film does with Johnny Fontaine. It just sounds, it sounds too good to be true to me. It just sounds like, so he actually got the part of Johnny Fontaine, literally how Johnny Fontaine got his contract.
Right.
So
Right.
in the book, Fontaine, based on Sinatra, of course, like
Yes. Yes.
like the big favorite of every mobster, because and of course, I don't know if you knew about this. Sinatra hates The Godfather.
Does he really?
He hates it, but again, I think it's because he knew what they were angling out the Johnny Fontaine character. He felt really offended because like I don't think Sinatra was ever comfortable with people like always speculating, and but I think it was accurate, but I don't think he liked to talk about it. It's the fact
Sure, I could see that.
Sinatra
Yeah.
had here's the thing: Sinatra had mob ties. Now, whether he had an ongoing relationship with the mob, or I think he just he ran in the mobsters, and that gave him a reputation. Now, I don't think he was actually indebted with them, but the point being that the word got out there. He was never happy with. He would curse out Poutso in restaurants, saying up yours, like he just hated Poutso for writing the book, and the movie came around. He's still probably not happy. Anyway, so Fontaine again. He kind of gives us the whole Michael and Kay kind of conversation about Luca Brasi getting his contract, but also brings us to Hollywood.
All right, so honestly, Dragon, it was literally only my most recent watch where I realized just how freaking brilliant is it that literally the wedding plus the Hollywood stuff all the way up until the horse head is essentially one elongated cold open.
Right. And how cool is that?
That hit me like a ton of fucking bricks on a rewatch, Dragon. It really did.
That's what I'm saying. That's why the wedding really impresses me on the rewatch, because like it's all centered around the wedding, or opening, the wedding itself, and Johnny Fontaine. 3 sequences right in a row. It's great.
I mean, I don't know. There's just something about like the thesis statement of like, all right, we're being introduced to all these mobsters. We definitely like them to a certain level. They do something that on just a completely visceral, objective level is horrific. On every level, the horse head is horrific.
Which kids, that's not movie magic. That's an actual set. No, seriously, that's a real horse's head that they put on ice.
And then we just cut to another office scene, and it's off to the races.
Yep.
Like we're getting into the 5 families. We're getting into the plot, and my God, Dragon, that is honestly one of the big magic tricks of the movie. I'm just fucking glowing about it.
One could say,
like it's honestly like the entirety of the Breaking Bad arc in fast forward of kind of like getting you to root for the bad guy. One other thing with the horse's head I want to mention is I love how they were originally going to shoot it where the guy woke up with the head right next to him on the other side of the bed. Mm-hmm. But then they got the idea where it's like he's slowly waking up. He sees the blood in his hand, the blood in the bed, and then he slowly finds it within the bedding. Honestly, Dragon, I don't know about you, but that makes it so much more effective.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way Coppola told the story is that when he read the book, he imagined it like the way you just described it. But I'm sorry about that. What I mean is like, yeah, it was actually supposed to be the way you just described, where it's laying on top of the bed. But he always imagined it like cinematically under the sheets.
I mean, I just feel like that makes it a lot more realistic too.
It does, and it's a horrifying reveal for a guy. I really hope that's like fake blood on that guy when he wakes up.
All right, Dragon, we're almost 50 minutes in. We have to freaking talk about Tom Hagen.
Okay, so I'm so glad you brought up Tom Hagen. I love me.
I think
Tom Hagen.
Are we on the same page that he is our favorite character in the franchise?
I mean, yeah, as far as the franchise goes, in terms of like 3 movies, yeah, because you can't say Brando for all 3.
No, yeah, it's hard to top Vito for sure. But I'm just saying overall, like, I will be honest with you, for as much shit as Sofia Coppola gets for Godfather Part 3, and yeah, she's not great.
I mean, look, she's okay. She's okay.
I think the fatal flaw with Godfather Part 3, the fatal flaw is the fact that there's no Tom Hagen.
Well, wait a minute. Tom Hagen's in Godfather Part 3. What are we talking about?
Is he really?
I might be briefly, but he's in there. I remember it's the big
That's
scene.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but he really doesn't factor into it that much.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's in like the big scene where, they every time I'm out, they pull me back in. He's in that scene.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I don't know. He just feels so closely tied to the plot of the first two movies. It's just in the third movie, he very much feels sidelined, if anything else. It's been a long time since I've seen part
Okay,
three.
just to build the Tom for a second. Okay, I just want to mention I love just with the brothers and in the opening scene as well how we set the hierarchy of what each brother kind of brings to the table in regards to the Corleone crime family. Which, we have the Sonny is the passion and the strength of the family. He's very much he's the strength. Michael's the intelligence. He's the smarts, the strategy. Fredo is the loyalty, and Tom Hagen is law and business. He's the business side of things. He's the money man. And again, more particularly, he is. Look, here's the thing that always touched me on the rewatch of The Godfather. On the rewatch for this, especially, is like, oh, I was going all over the place. I love the backstory. I've always loved the backstory on Tom Hagen. The fact that he's not Sicilian, the fact that he was adopted into the family, and that he was but he was friends with Sonny. That's the element I forgot about. That, oh my God, Sonny found.
Honestly, Dragon, in that respect, I feel like he's even more of an audience surrogate character than Michael is.
I mean, what Duvall does so well is that he's in so much control during the scenes where when he's being held hostage by the other mobsters, where he's being treated very cordially because he has the important role of he has the Don's ear. He's the guy that Don's going to listen to business wise. That even though, hey, we've just attempted to kill Marlon Brando, you're going to have to talk his son into working with us. And there's just such a role of like everyone respects Tom Hagen, and it goes both ways. And I just love that. And the fact that he deals with the studio boss. He's the one sent to Hollywood. He's the one who goes on the rounds, much like Saul Goodman is tasked to meet with people in Breaking Bad. Literally, Breaking Bad has the whole Tom Hagen comparison to him, so it's always built
on some level. Saul Goodman has to be inspired by him.
The first Better Call Saul episode, the first Better Call Saul episode of Breaking Bad, has the whole Godfather comparison. Right now, you're Fredo, buddy. I'm Tom Hagen. You need
right, for sure.
So yeah, absolutely, and of course the fact that he's being like treated very bigotedly, and I love how like Duvall just is playing it like, well, actually, I'm not Sicilian. I'm German Irish. it's wonderful. No, but seriously,
that's the thing. Just his role is like both parts, an outsider in the family and like a key linchpin in the family, is so fascinating how he draws that line throughout the movie.
I just love like the unspoken. It's so subtle, but I really felt it, man. The fact that Sonny and Tom are the best, were so good friends that he adopted him as his brother. And I just love you kind of see like when Tom is taken, like Sonny's like, wait a minute, where is he? He's just really worried about his brother. It's adorable.
All right, and another thing about Tom that I really love that kind of translates through the movie is like, at the end of the day, the movie almost kind of becomes a power struggle between him and Michael as far as he is trying to hold on to the values of Vito Corleone. Like Dragon, to give a more familiar example that all of us, watching the channel are aware of, it kind of reminds me of like the corporate, like what would Walt do guys. Like Tom Hagen is that. Like Tom Hagen is like the Ron Millers of the world. The what would Walt do? And then Michael Corleone, Dragon, he's Eisner. He's like, fucking forget what Walt would do. This is what I would do. That's kind of how I view it in a way. It's just kind of like, like Hagen is trying to hold on to the humanity of Vito, whereas Michael knows that that's like a fetal effort at this point.
Absolutely. So speaking of which, I want to talk about the business with Tom Hagen. We talk about business. I want to talk about the big business plot thing of this film, where Schlazzo, the Turk tries to bring the drug business into the Corleone crime family. Basically, wants the Corleones to lend their corruption, like all the politicians that have in their pocket, to basically get the drug business up and running. So, what's so fascinating about this from a plot kind of perspective is, we have a great, we have our moralist with Vito Corleone, who has reservations about drugs as the mafia's next enterprise. And again, it's very like 40s versus 70s in terms of organized crime. And you kind of feel it with that, a very relevant kind of thing to now. And it's basically, in a roundabout way, it's like Vito absolutely saw Scarface coming. He saw like, yeah, drugs are going to be our downfall. We don't want to do that. Yeah, we don't want to.
Totally.
Yeah, we bring.
What I love about this whole thing is the scene establishing the war is that Dragon. It is the most polite drawing of battle lines ever, is it not?
Yeah, he wishes him luck and everything. And you gotta remember, and I love how later on when they had
I wish you luck because your business is not going to interfere with my business, but I got to politely decline, and I'm going to tell you why. It's like, it's so polite.
It's so polite. Again, it's all about the pleasantries, man. And I love it. Now, here's the thing. And I love that we called this out when we tried it when we had like the ceasefire meeting after what happened with Sonny, is that Vito points out, like, I've always heard out your favors throughout all these years. The one time I say no, you try and kill me.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's like you'd be legitimately offended. So in regards to how Michael sees the business compared to how Vito did things, think about it. So the Cortland crime family, they monopolized corruption and gambling. Essentially, that was the bread and butter of the 40s with organized crime. Before that, you had a prohibition. That was kind of the other facet, which is probably kind of dying out at this point in the 40s. So it's the fact that he traded in favors in the family approach, which kind of rose the Corleone family to prominence out of the five families. And the problem in Vito's model was that it led to 10 years of complacency of old friends and favors, essentially the old guy way of doing crime. Essentially, like, I know a guy who knows a guy, and we'll threaten a guy. Essentially it's a fixer's operation. So, and again, just these hungry families are looking for a power vacuum in that. Like, no, we can't have him hold all the corrupt politicians. We need those corrupt politicians. The only way we can be on even footing with him is through the drugs. So it's like a really interesting kind of like, kind of dilemma to have, where, again, he was too nice in the mob, and that was his downfall, which is so fascinating.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking
the whole movie kind of hinges on that idea.
Of course, Michael has to basically has to show strength in a very deadly way by the end to regain prominence. But we'll get there later. So speaking of the fall of Vito, dear God, the assassination, the oranges. We got to talk about the oranges.
Yeah, of course. I'll get, when we get to Vito's death, I've got a pop culture reference I need to bring up with that. But of course, Breaking Bad has the famous bit with the oranges that got spoiled for me, by the way. Thank you, Entertainment Weekly.
God.
I still haven't forgotten that.
All right.
Literally the first paragraph of your review.
All right.
Anyways.
So yeah, of course, Fredo. Here's the Tiki. I don't think you've ever seen it. Did you ever see Analyze This, the movie with De Niro and Billy?
No, I have not.
There's this hysterical scene in the movie where they shot for shot remake in like a nightmare sequence. The assassination attempt on Vito Corleone with De Niro, who obviously played him in the sequel, which is even funnier. And basically Billy Crystal's playing Fredo, and he's fumbling with the gun, saying "Papa."
Oh God!
I've done my stupid impression to you, haven't I?
What?
I do a stupid impression about this scene. I do. It's John Travolta's audition for The Godfather.
Oh no!
No! Papa, why?
Oh God!
Oh, why?
That legitimately sounds like a Freakazoid bit.
Anyway. Okay, point being, just seeing Fredo again, his kind of incompetence, kind of getting in the way, which is obviously going to get him killed in the second film. But there's
spoilers. Jeez,
we didn't say.
I love how this movie is basically just like Fredo's not in it much, but literally everything he does is just laying the groundwork for his eventual demise.
One could say he's the idiot nephew of the family.
Absolutely.
Only actually kind of an idiot, though. Lovable as he is, lovable though. You got to give him that. He's like, oh, Fredo, he tries.
He is probably the most tragic character in the franchise, I would say.
Because again, he is I love how he is like. I don't think. Is he the middle child? There's 5 kids. Is he like? But regardless, point being, he's like the second to last and/or the middle child of the family. So because of that, it's like Michael's younger than him, yet Michael commands so much more respect than he does. And he gets under his skin later on in the franchise. But even a little bit here, you can kind of see, like once we do the Vegas scene. Anyway, so of course, yeah, the orange is the symbol of death. It's such a weird idea, but it just works so perfectly. I love the orange. I just love that we have like a symbol of incoming death. They're like, oh God, the orange. Why the fruit? I guess because it like grows on the vine, right? Is it the oranges grow on the vine?
I don't know, Dragon.
What about the Valencia oranges? You don't know?
The Valencia oranges? What?
Yeah,
What
Valencia
about
orange.
Valencia oranges?
Never mind.
All I know about Valencia is that that's where Six Flags Magic Mountain is.
I know you keep mentioning it. I thought you might know about the other. It doesn't
I
matter.
don't know.
Okay. The point being, the orange. I don't get it, but I love it.
All right. That guy says, "Good luck. Hope we kill each other in a polite and orderly manner."
Yep.
All right.
So the hospital scene is where Pacino it's his finest moment.
It's not the big transformation, but it's like the start of the transformation.
I just love how in control he is of the situation. This is like the wake up call for him that I got to get involved in my family's business here, because if I don't, my father is going to die, and I don't want that to happen. Where he's recognizes Salasso has gotten to the bent cops that they used to own, and they're going to finish his father off. Tiki, this is so wonderful. And again, another wedding payoff. Enzo, the guy who baked the wedding cake, he comes in to save the day. Like, okay, Enzo,
yes, I love Enzo Dragon. He's so lovable.
Your daughter's gonna love it. It's an amazing wedding cake. So again, it's just that it was like a cute little gag, and it had such a lovely payoff. Oh, Enzo helped save the day, and he's all nervous. Like, yeah, it was a wonderfully tense sequence that obviously then leads to Mug getting beaten up, and basically like, okay, we got to take out this corrupt cop and the Turk, but if Sonny goes down, they're going to know what's up. So Michael basically is the solution. Michael is going to have to take a very active role that's going to put him in a lot of jeopardy. To basically like a surprise attack they'll never see coming, which leads to the most basically there's so much of Breaking Bad influenced by this scene, the restaurant scene.
Absolutely, especially in terms of how they execute suspense.
Yeah, and the gun behind the toilet is like oh my god, it's the idea that again the thought that went into the mob hits and the calculation behind those specific hits. That's what's really brilliant about that scene.
I'm going to give credit to John Campia for this observation, but Campia basically pointed out in his movie club podcast today where the brilliance of that scene is that literally like they lay you through exactly what is going to go down, and then the scene plays out pretty much exactly how they say it's going to go down, and yet it's still fucking terrifying.
That is like when he stops him when he's walking to the bathroom and he frisks him again. He's not in danger, but he's about to do something that's gonna. It's great.
I mean, it's such a great execution of suspense where it's like it's literally going exactly according to plan. There's very few pitfalls here, but still, you are hanging on every word like it's the end of the world.
I mean, the most tension I had, oddly enough, was at the end of the sequence where he didn't follow it to a T, where he didn't just drop the gun by his side to look like he still had it. He just kind of like, threw it out of his hand, people saw his face. So anyway.
Also, he doesn't pay attention to the two shots thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, the two things...
that is the thing. It's like, there's nothing that happens that puts him in inherent danger. But I do think with the payoff of it being a little bit sloppy and, we have in our head, like exactly how we think it's going to go down. I think that's what makes the scene even more unnerving is the fact that they twist our expectations right at the very end.
Now, the two things I got to bring up about this scene. The first thing is a huge runner with Michael's arc in this film that is very much epitomized by this scene is, is it business or personal? In which like we're kind
pretty
of
much
saying,
the mantra of the film.
Yeah, exactly. And again, this basically Michael's arc is very much like the whole is he doing this because he's personally he's like he was attacked by this cop. Is he killing the cop out of revenge because got like blood on his Ivy League suit? That the whole thing. The whole bada bing brings me a nice Ivy League suit. That whole thing. Or is it the business of this has to happen? And ultimately, I think it's person that evolves in the business, and that ultimately Michael is doing all this purely getting all this blood out of business. But again, it's like all this starting from him getting involved because of the personal ties to his father. And the fascinating thing about Michael Corleone as a character is that his biggest strength and his biggest character flaw is the divide he has from his family from being in the army. And again, having kind of an arm's length relationship with his father. He was the one sent away so he could do better things. And obviously he comes
Right.
back.
Yeah. Like it's very much by Vito's own design that he wants him to be slightly apart from the family. He wants him to essentially be what Tom Hagen becomes by the end, which is the legitimate businessman of the family, the one who's not corrupted.
Precisely. So again, I just love that in correlation with the whole like business or personal kind of like evolution with him that's going on there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We should talk about Kay before we get too deep into this. I mean, we're already pretty deep into it, but
we say Kay is very much kind of like, she does represent not naivete as they kind of talk about. She is very much the
one of my favorite little naive Kay moments is it's towards the beginning.
Was it the Christmas shopping?
Yes, it's the Christmas shopping.
Yeah, that's great.
What do you want for Christmas? Oh, I just want you, Michael. Tell me that's not a Norma Bates-esque response.
Yeah, and he's throwing
I just want you, Alex.
But I love, I do love that she kind of stops the action for a big dramatic moment. He's really saying like, "Who do you want?" Like you're throwing out like some actresses, and it's just like, "No, they're not really, Kay." And he says, "No, look at the paper. Your father's picture." So yeah, that's great. So
I think Kay is like what Skylar White was trying to be, but they just didn't reach the heights of it.
Well, to be fair, Godfather Part Two is more of the Skylar White thing they're doing, but yeah,
that's true. I'm on Drake. I'll be honest with you. I'm much more familiar with this. I've seen Godfather Part Two like a couple times. I've seen this like at least like a dozen or so times.
Well, I mean, Tiki, we're in the same boat on that. I'm more familiar with this than that, but I'm just still saying, like broadly, Godfather 2, even in broad strokes, it's very much like Kay not being happy with Michael.
No. But what I'm saying is that like her character is like you are very much like on her side. Like I feel like by the end of the movie, with the door closing on her, I feel like the door closing on her is almost kind of like passing the torch of like, okay, now she's the protagonist. She's the one that the audience should care about.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think that's what they're going for. I don't think it's necessarily how Godfather 2 ends up being, but yes, I see your point. Yeah.
I'm just saying, as far as the ending goes.
Yeah, no, you're right. As far as the ending goes, absolutely, yeah, it does feel
so. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that. I will say, I do think she takes Michael back a little too easily.
I mean, look, it's a buy, but it's like
I know. You kind of have to have it.
I mean, you see that she really likes him, and the fact that she while he was gone, she kept visiting and checking. She definitely loved the guy.
You know what would if I were in her position, the thing that would piss me off would be
the fact that he's been back for a year.
Yes. I'd be like, you've been back for a year and you haven't even bothered to contact me. Great.
I gotta be honest. I think
that shows me your priorities, Mike.
I'll tell you what I really think it is, honestly, T. I think it's just that Pacino had like a magnetism in the 70s. I really think that
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I think it was like, seriously, women, I mean, the main reason, like, they kept asking women, like, hey, do you think we should cast Pacino? He says, yeah, he undresses you with your eyes. Yeah. They literally said that. They loved Pacino. They loved the way he had the intense look about him. They dug Pacino, man. I think that's kind of honestly what it is with Kay. He's like, man, I love this Pacino guy. So also, something we got to talk about, too, is the violence in The Godfather and how it represented just on the whole.
I hate to keep going back to Albuquerque verse, but it very much is kind of like that same realm of like stylized but realistic.
Yes. Now the thing I want to hit some of the Batman the animated series did all the time, what they pulled from The Godfather so perfectly, and we get to see it actually in this film, is that you have all like the little touches right before the violence happens, like the little tip off, the little like last second tip off, where you have things like at the toll booth, the guy drops the quarter so he can close the door behind him. And like you realize right when it's too late, or like Luca Brazzi's like they light the cigar, the cigarette for him right before he, right before it happens. Of course, hey, I got to take a leak. Take the gun, leave the gun, take the cannoli.
I gotta be honest with you. Obviously, Sonny is like the big death, like that you're at least the big murder that you're supposed to like really take to heart. But Luca is also very sad.
Because remember, the whole reason Luca was there was he was double crossing the Turk. He was like pretending to be unhappy with the Corleone family. He's like, oh, poor Luca.
That's what I'm saying, man. He was literally just like a pawn.
And he's literally he's basically he's the
And
messenger.
especially given the whole, like, he's so nervous to talk to the Dawn that he's rehearsing Luca is like a big puppy dog,
I
man.
mean,
I love
here's
Luca.
the most endearing thing about Luca Brasi to me is that he doesn't ask for anything from the Dawn.
Yeah,
He's
totally.
the only person that doesn't ask. He shows to pay his respects,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right, so again, we talked about Sicily, but the main thing we got to talk about with Sicily is Apollonia.
Yeah, well, what do you think of the theory that I kind of laid out there, Drake, where Michael is, like, he's probably physically attracted to her, sure, but definitely not emotionally attached to her?
I think I'm inclined to agree with that because, one
And
of the
he's
things
really just kind of positioning himself with marrying her.
Well, I mean, the big thing I really loved about that whole courtship was how he basically won over the father, which never happens. But remember, the way he won over the father was kind of a business arrangement, so that lends credence to what you're saying about the whole
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's
about
exactly
the whole
what I'm saying.
the
Yeah,
power
it's
player thing, which makes me
like
think you're
his
right.
chess play. He's in full on chess player mode in that scene.
But then again, you're right though. Physically, he is struck by her beauty at the top, the whole bolt of lightning thing. So that whole thing. And honestly, I think ultimately it becomes like a tolerance sort of thing, where it's like, oh, she's like again, he kind of looks at it like a silly Norma Bates or like Elektra sort of thing of like instead of like Michael, let's splash
He
in
is
the
Norma
blood.
Bates. She is Elektra.
But the whole. No, but no, it's kind of like the equivalent, like splishy splash in the blood.
Yeah.
Michael, I want to drive.
Oh my god!
Drive with me, Michael.
Oh no! Oh, all right.
No, but seriously, that's our whole thing. It's like literally, it's like
Yeah,
Michael,
no, you're right. You're right. It is.
It's the root of the Elektra thing, ultimately.
And it's just like Dragon. It's like rewatching this movie, knowing what happens to her. I'm like, oh, you do not want to drive, lady. You really don't. Stop saying you want to drive. It's gonna doom you. It's gonna lead to the death of you. Just don't do it.
It's always been darkly funny to me all the times. Like every time I think of the Sicily stuff, the one thought that pops in my mind is, "No, Apollonia."
I mean, to be fair, that is like by far the most iconic moment of all the Sicily stuff.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that silly lady kept wanting to drive and she blew up.
Right.
Fabrizio, why?
Oh god.
So that whole thing. Honestly, I keep thinking of. I don't know if I'm misquoting it every time he brings it up, but the evening with Kevin Smith thing, he always says, like, "Don't talk to me like I'm effing Apollonia." So every time he says that, I'm thinking he's literally talking about this Apollonia, which he might be. I don't know. I like to think he is. Anyway, so of course Michael has kind of very much his odyssey here. He kind of has the experience like his father had in Sicily that kind of takes him from being a boy to being a man.
Very much so, and that's why I like it so much. Like I said, Dragon, I really don't think the movie would feel as epic as it does without the Sicily stuff.
I mean, that's the thing. I just wonder how a modern audience coming to this movie for the first time would respond to it. Would they think it's like why are we in Italy so much? Or like, is it like that whole thing?
I mean, if I'm being honest with you, I've heard quite a few retrospectives in the past week or so of people talking about the movie. Like either they haven't seen it in a long time, or John Campea had on one person who had never seen it until this week, and then he and Robert Meyer Burnett are obviously big fans of it. But I don't know, Dragon. More often than not, I think a modern audience is in tune with everything, and I think one of the big reasons why is the Albuquerque thing that we keep beating the horse on with this podcast. I really do think that people watch this movie and they're just kind of like, oh man, this is basically the blueprints for the modern crime epic.
I mean, for sure. Yeah, I mean, this is the crime epic, ergo the modern crime epic years later with the Breaking Bad.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We've already established that the Albuquerque verse is the modern crime.
It's the TV equivalent to the Godfather. Let's be honest. So the Sonny.
You hear that, Sopranos?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, easily. Trust me. Here's the thing: rewatchability is what you have with the Albuquerque versus Sopranos. Totally. It's all you're just rewatching till you get to the good parts. Breaking Bad, there's a story there, man. You're wrapped up in it. One could say it's addictive. So, Sonny and Carlo, man. Basically, the whole Sonny and Carlo.
Yes. I honestly think Sonny is not the most. I mean, he is likable, but he's not the most likable character in the movie. But I think James Caan is maybe the most magnetic performance.
Yeah. I mean, he's
And
so
it's
darn
hard to
good.
say that when you got fucking Brando right there, but it's like he just commands the screen whenever he's there.
I love how Sonny's downfall was this temper and the fact that he was too passionate about
Yeah,
Vito, which
absolutely.
again,
Absolutely. And I feel like that mirrors Vito in some ways.
and that's the thing I love, just in conjunction between Vito and Michael, where that lands. Where again, it's
Uh-huh.
like he's the opposite. It's the opposite of where Michael goes with things, and yet it's very much. It's like, I know you don't watch the show Blue Bloods, but they take a very almost identical approach to, like, they have like a family unit of all these kids, and all these kids are essentially reflections of the father.
Okay.
And they're all
Tom
different.
Selleck.
Yeah, with Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck
Uh-huh.
being the police commissioner, and you have like his
That's
dog.
all I know about Blue
But
Bullets.
that's what I'm saying. Like each the idea is each kid is like a different rung on the rung of
Okay,
the law.
okay.
So it's like the
Yeah,
daughter,
yeah, yeah.
daughter's a DA, a detective, and a beat cop. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Gotcha, gotcha.
It's really nice. I love it. Anyway, so point being, so you get the fact that he's blind with passion, and that leads to again he the method of like Carlo taking out the Corleone family's strength. Again, in taking out Sonny, you take away kind of the last, the big fire of the family. That's all. It's
It
very
is.
Dunhill and Gertie.
Sonny's death is absolutely the low of lows of the story. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Vito's death is almost like more bittersweet than anything
Oh,
else.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. And also, it's funny. I think one of the most squibs used on an actor, 147 squibs.
Yeah, it's brutal, man. It's brutal.
Yeah,
I mean,
modified.
that is like absolutely the most visceral violence in the movie.
I mean, apparently they were inspired by Bonnie and Clyde, which very much shows in that.
Oh, I could absolutely see that. Yeah, for sure.
But also, I just loved him. Like, I just love how we teed this up, where he just hated Carlo, like the way Carlo treated his sister after the wedding, where he just like, we don't talk business at the table, Carlo.
And let's face it, right? Who would not hate Carlo after he whips out that belt and after that big confrontation?
I mean, he hits.
I feel like Carlo is like the character where you're just like sitting there like, oh, this motherfucker better die by the end of the movie.
And just the fact that dirtbag did all that, he tortured that poor woman just to basically get Sonny to go after him so he could kill him.
And it's like, even after Vito's dead, Dragon, he's still sitting there. He's still in the background.
Yeah, just an effing dirtbag.
You're just like, oh, god damn it, why won't you die? You're like a fucking cockroach.
I just love seeing Sonny hit him with the garbage can lid. It's just so darn satisfying. You come near my sister again, I'll kill you. Oh man, James Caan is so freaking awesome.
Uh-huh.
But yes, his death, just tragic. And that, of course, leads to, I think, the best scene in the movie is my favorite scene in the movie. Just Brando's best scene. Look what they did to my boy. Just the somberness of him going to the Undertaker, who owed him that favor from the top for doing something for his kid, avenging his daughter, and just this whole, like, I want you to use all your powers and all your skills. I don't want his mother to see him like this. It's just,
yes,
oh my god,
yes, absolutely.
And the fact that after this he's not going for an eye thing with the five families. He just calls for a ceasefire. His peace. He's lost.
I feel like that's like a definitive, like that's like the definitive Vito Corleone chess move of the movie.
Which again, we're playing against the tropes so well. We're going against the grain so perfectly with that.
Uh-huh.
And it's a move that I don't think any of the five families really see coming. I don't think they think it's going to be an all-out war.
Sure.
So something we absolutely have to mention, speaking of Brando. So Michael and Vito, they are in 3 scenes together in the film. They only act against each other once, which is really impressive when you think about it. Seeing how much.
Honestly, I think in some ways with the screenwriting, it makes sense because the movie is so pivotally about like the contrast between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it really makes sense that, like, as far as the screenwriting goes, you really do only have to have that one really big encounter, and everything else is just kind of context.
I love how the scene plays in which Brando knows that he's not going to be around. He knows that he is like on his last legs, and he knows he really doesn't have much time. So he just kind of like gives his son he gives him like 2 bits of advice. For one, he just kind of gives him like the personal opinion of, I never wanted this for you. I wanted you. Essentially, he says, and this ties into the poster. I wonder if you've ever considered this. I mean, it's probably an obvious thing everyone's considered. I just kind of recently put it together on this rewatch that he wanted his son to be the guy to pull the strings, ergo the big title image of the puppeteer strings.
Well, yes, Dragon puppet strings, yes.
Well, I know. I'm just saying literally the idea. Yeah,
strings.
Yeah. But no, seriously. I mean, I thought that's a really neat idea that kind of re-justifies.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a great metaphor, and I honestly think a chess piece would be an even better symbol for the movie, because I do kind of relate the symbols more to like the chess maneuvers than puppets on strings, just because everyone has such a rooted interest. But I don't know, but I do hear you. I do hear you.
I mean, again, it's strings because you're always pulling strings to make something happen. That's why.
Sure.
So that's what I'm saying. I gotta be honest, because all these years I've looked at the Godfather, I was like, that's a really cool poster with the puppet strings, like you. Like,
it is, yeah.
But it never occurred to me, oh my God, that's why it's the strings. It's because of that beautiful scene between father and son there, about the whole, I wanted you to be like the guy who was at the top of the rung, who we would go to you for the connections. You wouldn't be, you would be something honest that maybe you could help us of your own accord, but we would, that sort of thing. Like he hoped that you would be the paragon, you Senator Corleone, Governor Corleone, and he hoped the distance would account for that. Anyway, so just there's like a sadness and a pride, which ultimately leads to the kind of, I think, the big question in the franchise, even but by the end of the film just taking it on its own. Ultimately, would he be saddened by Michael's arc? I think he would.
I absolutely think he would.
Yeah. Of course, the other.
Honestly, I think by the time he dies, he's not even like. I think by the time he dies, he's not happy with where Michael's going. Honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the fact that he's running the business, and like it's like, okay, well, my son clearly can do it, but I never wanted him to do it. So
right. Not only that, but I think I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at the very least he has some inkling of like the fact that like with Michael running the business, it's kind of eating away at Michael's humanity.
I mean, going further back, then I agree with you with that point, but I'm saying going further back in the hospital bed when he wakes up after Michael has been extradited to Sicily for his protection, it's like, where's Michael?
Yes,
there's a sadness there of like someone had to have looped him in as to what happened. You gotta admit there's probably like a deleted, not actually.
By the way, I'm convinced that the whole "Where's Michael" thing. I'm convinced that that the whole Jimmy thing is like at the very least partly inspired by that.
I'd like to think you're right. Jimmy.
God.
No, Mom, it's Chuck.
Oh God.
Anyway, no, but seriously, there's the fact that there's got to be like a scene where he's just kind of crying in private over just like the fact that his son is like, oh no, he fell into our habit. The one thing I didn't want to happen. So the other thing that really impresses me too is the fact that he gave him a great bit of wisdom that saved Michael's bacon at the end, even though he again, it's almost like a Jor-El Superman thing of like, listen, I don't want you to give up your powers, and ultimately I'm going to give you your powers back. So that's it's a little bit of that where it's like, I don't want you to do this, but if you are going to do this, I'm going to give you the thing that's going to save you. Whoever comes to you after, mentioning Brazzini, mentions the big boss. From our side of the family, that's the traitor. And that tells
don't trust Abe Vigoda.
Yes, of course, Tiki. If you recall, so Tessio's name, his first name is Sal.
Oh God!
And of course, Mask of the Phantasm, Abe Vigoda plays Sal Valestra.
All right, Dragon. I am not going to lie. Every time I see Abe Vigoda, including this movie, all I can think of is Good Burger.
Oh, come on. Really? No Phantasm?
I'm sorry.
Look at all. There's no Phantasm.
That's the 90s kid in me, Dragon. I'm sorry.
The Phantasm was in the 90s, too. Oh, but put him in the little paper hat. Really? Okay, regardless. But, it's a great exit for Vigoda. There was the whole, like, what do you say, Tom? For old time's sake? Not this time. Just great. Again, the fact that Vito gave his son the advice that really kind of saved his bacon. That was nice. Of course, the death of Vito just very honest and just the Orange Grove death.
I honestly think it's one of the more peaceful scenes in the movie.
Yeah, it's an improvised scene too. The way they shot it, they were losing the light and they just kind of played with the kid before the light ran out in the day. And like Brando came up with the idea, "Why don't I put the orange peel on it to make it look like a monster?" So I think it's fitting that Vito dies celebrating family and as a quote unquote monster. So again, it's kind of the dichotomy represented where he's a monster, but he's kind of dying, playing with family. He's quite harmless, but it's a humbling.
Sure, yeah.
It's also a humbling death that he is sort of like this huge paragon and respected titan in the criminal underworld, and yet, he just dies. He pretty much dies alone in an orange grove. Just kind of topples over, like no ceremony or all. And the kid's like not even real. The kid's not like, Papa! He's not pulling a Travolta there. He's just going like, just playing around. Which is always haunting to me. Okay. So I guess the last real set piece we have is the christening.
Yeah, which is definitely one of the most iconic set pieces in the franchise, I would say.
Yes. So this is when, of course, with the christening itself, Michael becomes Godfather, quite literally, and he's made the Godfather of Connie's child, which again is so perverse with what he does to Carlo momentarily. Of all things, is the fact that how tainted.
I'm not going to make my sister a widow, Carlo. You think I'd do that?
I love that so much. But again, Carlo absolutely deserved it.
Sure.
It's just screwed up that he waited until afterwards, but it was, it's yeah. So again, just the christening, the coordinated hits, which again, Michael with the military strategy at his disposal here, it's a calculated and simultaneous hit, which is a brilliant idea and so well composed and edited visually. It's the fact that as he's taking the vows, like, do you banish Satan from your heart? Like, oh God. As he's saying,
it's absolutely just like, okay, any shred of innocence that this character had is just gone now, in spite of exactly what is going on in the church.
That's what I'm saying. There's an artfulness and an operatic nature to the violence.
Absolutely. Operatic is the word, I think.
Yeah. And of course, like, we kill people in all sorts of variety of ways. Like, we kill the casino owner who insulted the Corleones, and again, the whole business personal thing. You're, Green. We shoot him in the eye and the glasses.
I'm Al Green.
Mo Green, yeah.
Oh, Mo Green, yeah. Do you know who I am? I'm Mo Green.
Let's see. So then, we kill the guy in the revolving door. We dress a mobster up as a cop, and he kills him. We have the elevator and with the shot. Oh, Clemenza with the shotgun at the elevator. That's really cool. And then kill mobs. So essentially, we killed all the other four heads of the family and Mo Green.
Basically, if you've ever seen Breaking Bad, it's the prison montage.
But it's even better than the prison montage in that we killed the heads of, like, literally. That's how he rose.
It's literally the heads of the 5 families. Yeah.
Which is just great. It's not even like the lieutenants or just like the people who knew stuff. It's like, no, like, these are the guys, like the guys who aced you out, the guys who orchestrate everything, the string pullers, if you will. Kill them all. And then of course, Carlo. We closed the loop on Carlo, and I love that we gave him the illusion of hope with exile and made him feel all bad about it. And then we killed him like,
oh, Vegas. That's not so bad.
Yeah, it's Vegas. But then we killed him like Brazzi, but in a car. I always remember the car. I got to tell you, from years before I rewatched The Godfather, it was like I assumed Luca Brazzi was the car kill. But like, no, he's not the car kill. He was just he's killed like Jabba. Then then Carlo gets killed in the car. He kicks out that windshield. It's all brutal. That's a Sopranos death, but obviously, something the Sopranos borrow from.
Sure.
So Michael and Kay, as you said, representation of innocence of Michael, the naivete of the soul. We literally closed the door on all that.
I mean, it is like the fucking morbid version of The Graduate ending, Dragon.
It is. I mean, well,
like with The Graduate ending, it's like, oh, okay, maybe things won't turn out. This is like, no, things are definitely not okay.
Well, The Graduate's more of like a, wait, what did we do? Where this is like,
right,
we know absolutely what we're doing here. Michael knows what he's doing. Like, yeah.
I
lied to my wife. I told her I didn't kill Carlo. I think Connie's coming in guns blazing at me. I lied to her.
Oh man. It's so good. It's so good.
And again, just beautifully, the chef's kiss full circle. Like, we're greeting the Godfather in the office. Greeting him in the office as Godfather, closing the door on it. Just going to that one of the.
Dragon, I'm not gonna lie. Just having this conversation makes me want to go and watch Godfather Part 2 right now.
Right.
I mean, it's definitely got like that sort of vibe of like, even though it wasn't made to have a sequel, it leads into a sequel so freaking well.
Just real quick, I just want to mention because we're having a little bit of mini love fest on Godfather Part Two. Godfather Part Two.
Godfather menu.
I just want to say I still love like De Niro as young Vito. The flashback segments are my favorite part of it.
Oh, it's a perfect casting choice for sure.
And just seeing him like walk through the town and like have the guy who doesn't like the landlord doesn't recognize like the influence that he has, then he comes like begging, like, no, here's the money for her, for the widow woman, you know? And it's like just prostrating himself to the Godfather of the block. I just love that so much. Anyway, so again, just chef's kiss of an ending. And again, one of the great sets of all time in films, The Office. It's a really great Office set.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, I honestly don't even really think we need final thoughts on this.
Yeah,
it's a masterpiece. 4 stars.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. Yeah,
it really does. All right, big thanks to that guy. Like I said, Dragon, I feel like 50 years, just to reflect on that really quick, like 50 years feels in both parts a huge milestone, and almost like it's like it doesn't even feel like it feels like it's been out for longer than that.
Well, it does, because it's set in the 40s, Tiki. It feels so...
No, you're right. But I'm just saying, just as far as like how much it's permeated pop culture.
Oh, for sure. I mean, again, it's so... I don't think... It's kind of hard to say if we talked about like a film, like an isolated film that is so recognized after 50 years like this, that is like so permeated in the culture, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it very much is like pretty much from the moment it came out, it was just like, okay, like this is like universe. I mean, honestly, Dragon, I think this kicks the shit out of Citizen Kane, if I'm being totally honest.
I mean, it would, let me this way, I
respect Kane from a visual level, but I mean, just narratively, this is so much better.
I mean, Citizen Kane is a comfy film, but this is like an amazing film.
Yeah.
I'm saying, so. Citizen Kane's like, you can watch it and then go to bed. It's like, oh man, that's a cozy cinematic experience. I'm going off to Betty by. But Godfather's like, okay, I'm sitting up straight for this.
That's funny you mentioned that, because I actually got the rewatch of this in. You know the evening that I slighted you last week.
How could I forget, Tiki? Yes.
So I actually got the rewatch of this in after I woke up, like about midnight my time. And I was like, I had already like basically like had a half a night's sleep. So I was kind of wide awake. So I was like, all right, I got 3 hours. Let's do Godfather.
It's cinematic espresso.
It really is, though. It really is. I mean, as soon as that music comes on, I Believe in America, it's like, okay, I'm in. All right. So yeah, like I said, big thanks to that guy. Happy 50 years. Francis, I hope to see you at the winery soon enough. Have a good night, everybody. Johnny, sing me a song.